phase shift of these functions. Okay, to make our lives easy, the first thing that should always be done on these is the argument inside of the trig function should be factored and simplified as much as possible. You should be pulling it out so that way you just have the x with a 1 in front of it. So essentially I'm going to take that inside there. 3 and 6 are convenient, so I'm just going to write this as a 3 times an x minus 2. Notice that's equivalent to 3x minus 6, but now the x has a coefficient of 1 in here, which makes it a lot easier to read for the information we're looking for. Okay, next let's do the three things we need. So the three things, one is amplitude. The amplitude is the absolute value of the number in front of the trig function. That's the vertical compression stretch factor. So in this case it's the absolute value of 2, which is 2. Second, period. So to find the period, we need to take 2 pi and divide that by absolute value of the number that was pulled out, the number that would be the coefficient to the x. So in this case, the number is a 3, the absolute value of 3. So 2 pi over 3 is your period. Finally, the phase shift. The phase shift is the number that is being subtracted from the x for the horizontal shift. Phase is horizontal shift. So here we're looking at that number and saying, well, our phase shift must be a shift right 2, because it's x minus 2. So our phase shift is 2 units to the right. So the amplitude, period, and phase shift here are 2 pi over 3, and 2. Okay, try it again here on the right with some negatives floating around now. The amplitude is the absolute value of the number in front of the trig function. So the absolute value of negative 5, which is 5. The period is 2 pi divided by, oops, need to simplify this. Let's pull out the common pi and leave that as pi times x plus 1. So now I can see that the number in front of the x plus 1, the coefficient to the x, was a pi. 2 pi over pi, which is equal to the number 2. Finally, orange, what is our phase shift? The phase shift is the opposite of the number that's inside of here. So x plus 1 means it would have been a shift left 1, so we consider our phase shift to be negative 1. Okay, one more. Why don't you try this one on your own here? Try the y equals 3 cosine of pi over 6 x plus 2 pi over 3 minus 7. Assuming you paused it and gave it a shot here. Now this one's a little bit of a sneakier factoring, so maybe hopefully you got this. So I'm going to pull out the pi over 6. That's going to be on top of an x plus, and let's see, that 2 pi over 3 would have been a 4 pi over 6. So if I pull out the pi over 6, that would have been a 4. So x plus 4 is the object that's inside of there. Okay, now we should be able to answer our questions though. So the amplitude is the absolute value of the number out there. So that's absolute value of 3, which is 3. The period is 2 pi divided by the absolute value of the number that is located right here. So that would be divided by the absolute value of pi over 6. 2 pi divided by pi over 6 would be like multiplying by 6 over pi. So it looks like the period this time should have come out to be a 12. And finally, the phase shift is the opposite of the number located right there. So in this problem, our phase shift is the opposite of plus 4, which is the number negative 4. So negative 4 is the phase shift.